something very different. It is not a lecture. It is not a course. But I want you to have a simulation exercise to simulate attending a powerful meeting on behalf of your country. If you go to Washington, D.C. to attend, or Brasilia, here in Brazil, there's a powerful office, you have to be a country representative to attend. Like even a professor or president of a university cannot attend. You have to represent a country. So all of you think of a country that you want to represent. I suspect that there will be an over-representation of Brazil. Yeah. I see also country reps from Paraguay, from Colombia, Mexico. No, Mexico is gone. Nicaragua. Who is Nicaragua? Oh, Nicaragua. Mexico.
Peru.
No. Peru.
Colombia. They are coming, the other ones, tonight.
Yes. So now you are all country representatives, and you come to the powerful meeting. We have been working on a project in the last 3 years. We have met several times, including Brasilia, Mexico City, Washington, D.C. 2 times, and now this is the final meeting. So think about the scenario. Pajo, please.
Vocês entenderam? Nós vamos fazer uma simulação que é o último encontro dos países estão discutindo algum assunto no carro e a gente tem que decidir agora alguma coisa que o professor vai propor. Então vocês estão representando os países. Como está subrepresentado os países, vocês podem escolher outros.
Buenas tardes, señoras y señores.
Wait.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't understand Spanish. Él no entiende español, tampoco portugués, así que va a usar la traducción del sistema. Estimados representantes de países, hoy día es el 6 de abril del 2016 y estamos reunidos aquí como parte del Grupo Asesor del Plan Estratégico de la OPS, por sus siglas en inglés SPAG, en su meeting, en su reunión final. Ustedes acordarán que hemos estado en una reunión por 3 años, hemos estado en diversas reuniones, incluyendo una reunión técnica en la Ciudad de México, 2 reuniones en la ciudad de Washington, D.C., una en Brasilia, Brasil, y ahora estamos en la última reunión final en donde se tomará decisiones sobre el trabajo que se ha venido haciendo. Permítame presentar al doctor Bernard Choi, que es el líder técnico de este grupo de trabajo, que dará un resumen, un summary del trabajo realizado hasta hoy. Profesor.
Dear country representatives, welcome to this last final powerful meeting on a very big project for the SPAG, Strategic Plan Advisory Group, and we have been working so hard in the last 3 years. And I've been asked by PAHO to present the summary of what we have been doing in the last 3 years, and welcome any suggestions and questions. It has to be voiced at this time. It is now April, and in September we will have to seek approval by the PAHO Directing Council of the mathematical equation that we have developed. And so make sure that all the 12 countries here, as a sample of the countries 35 countries in the region of the Americas can approve it, and then it will be extended to all 35 member states of PAHO for approval. And after that, it will be used in North, Central, and South Americas and the Caribbean for the allocation of PAHO budget for 1 billion people. So we all understand the severity and the impact of this work. All right. The PAHO adapted handling method for prioritization of program areas. As you know, in the past, a lot of the meetings have been used to allocate money, I mean billions and millions of money based on very subjective criteria. This is the first time at PAHO we developed an equation to calculate the score from 0 to 100 to help us to do a transparent, mathematical-based, evidence-based decision on how much money should be allocated to each program area. Of course, I'm Bernard Choi from Canada. And you realize the third name is Oscar Mujica, right here. These are all authors of the PAHO paper. We have a PAHO technical team. I think it was about 10 to 15 people, statistical, epidemiological expertise, working very hard, days and nights. And we have the PAHO Strategic Plan Advisory Group, SPAG, which is us. This is the SPAG. So it took us 3 years with the participation of 12 member states, the technical team, 3 meetings, 2 regional and 1 country pilot tests. We have indeed collected real data from the real countries in the field to test out the equation. Unlike the original Hannon equation, which is applicable to only diseases, our PAHO equation can now be applied to even non-disease programs. So this is a big advancement. We have the new criteria of inequity, of which Dr. Mujica is the top expert in the world on this topic. And institutional positioning. This is a very difficult concept, but I'm going to try my best to describe it. It is also very new. They are also added. The new equation is expected to be approved by the PAHO Directing Council, and that's the highest level of approval before applying to all 35 member states. It will be used when approved. And of course, you know that it has been approved because we are now like 10 years after that. And it will be used in the 2017 region-wide data collection in the region, and the results will be used for allocation of funds in 2018. We are also working on a journal manuscript on the new method. So we have had a countries working group and a PAHO strategic plan advisory group. The CWG had developed and approved and validated a number of indicators, including 18 impact indicators and 78 outcome indicators. And this group, starting in 2014, have been working on the 5-year strategic plan of PAHO, and especially part of our mandate is to develop a prioritization method for budget allocation, which is this new Hannon equation I'm going to talk about. This was the meeting. I remember the good time we had. And you see some old friends over there. It was in Brasilia. By the way, a very nice city. So beautiful. The food was so good. This was not part of my presentation. And you can see Bernard Choi over there and Professor Mujica at the end. You may also recognize a few others. This was the Washington, D.C. meeting. And again, there are a number of people that you may or may not recognize. But in fact, you should all recognize those faces because this is us. Priority setting, it is an important topic because when everything is a priority, there is no priority. And we have to prioritize. And we cannot take everything to be all at top level. Otherwise, we cannot do any activities. So the SPAG was created in 2014 to advise on PAHO's priority setting framework. The first meeting in Washington, D.C. was 2 days, and you see that this is the smaller Pinnacle team, which was led by Canada. And by the way, there was only one country representative from Canada at this PAHO meeting. And Canada was the technical lead of this core experts group. And what you see here is that the clock shows 9:30. And what happened was the day before, there was a very big hot topic, very difficult to resolve, a big question, which was not resolved at 11 p.m. last night. So the core group, unfortunately, was charged by the bigger group, i.e. all of you, to come up with a solution. So we started this emergency meeting at 6 a.m. And right now at 9:30, we came up with a solution. And that's why you see everyone is smiling. The next meeting was in Mexico City, and someone was teaching something to the other people.
That's someone with a very nice tie.
Again, someone with a very nice tie. This was the third meeting in Washington, D.C. When you have a question, a problem that cannot be resolved, a nice tie might help. Gives you some inspiration about the solution. So the idea of this work is to have everyone chip in, to think, and to come up with a solution. And I'm going to tell you what the problem is. So big that it took us 3 years, so many meetings, so many air miles to travel to solve. The Hendon equation developed in 1984 consisted of 4 components. Number 1, for it to be a priority, it has to be a big problem. If it is a small problem, it is not a priority. So, the size of the problem A, pumpkins. The big pumpkin has got a bigger priority than the small pumpkin. That's obvious, right? And the second criterion is seriousness. If it is a serious disease, it is affecting a lot of people, it kills people, it makes people disabled, then it is a bigger problem. If it does not hurt people, it is not a big problem. Oh, the cactus, the thorniness. If the thorn is very long and it's hurting people when you touch it, it is a more serious problem. So the cactus on the right has got a high priority. And the third thing to consider is the effective of intervention. First of all, is there any intervention for this problem? If there's no intervention, then you do not need to consider it. Even if it is very, very big problem, very serious problem, but there's no intervention. We cannot do anything about that. It has the lowest priority. So that means we look at the scissors. If your pair of scissors is big, then you can easily cut the thorns and remove the problem. Then it has a higher priority. If the intervention is not, is a small red pair of scissors, then it has a lower priority. So these are the basic three things. And the Hanlon equation also considered a Pearl score, which is the propriety or appropriateness of the intervention. Whether you have money in your country, you have money to apply the intervention, whether the intervention is acceptable to the population, other legal, other resources, and whether the intervention is legal. Now, the Pearl score is totally irrelevant to PAHO, because when it appears on the PAHO list of program area, all the Pearl score components must have been resolved. If it is not legal, then it won't come onto the PAHO list. So, the Hanlon equation was originally applied to only diseases, but PAHO has got both disease and non-disease program areas. That's a big problem. For example, group 1 in diseases, that's the usual application for Hanlon. For the health systems, like the health governance and financing, Hanlon equation cannot deal with that because it is not a disease. You cannot talk about the severity of the disease or the incidence and prevalence or mortality of the disease. We are talking about health systems. And public health interventions like alert and response capacities for the country, again, Hanlon equation cannot apply. Cross-cutting areas like social determinants of health. I see that some countries are nodding. This is really an important area. But Hanlon equation cannot handle it because it is not a disease. So it has weaknesses, as I've said. They all apply to diseases. The objective of the PAHO project is to review existing published methods for priority setting, number 1. Analyze strengths and weaknesses of the Hanlon method, and we have already seen a few weaknesses. And to develop an equation that's good for us, for PAHO, to apply to our situation and our needs. This is a review of the different methods for prioritization. Democracy method. Does anyone know or have used the democracy?
No.
No. Yes? No. Yes? Yes, everyone has used this method before. If you have got like 20 things for prioritize, to prioritize, you put the list on the wall and you give everyone 3 sticky dots, come out and then put the dots on where you want that to be prioritized. So we have done that a lot, but the official name is democracy. PAHO is such a complex. PAHO is such a complex organization. I suggest that we do not use democracy. It looks too a bit immature. It looks a bit childish. Yeah, like game. No, we cannot play with the budget of PAHO using that method. Questionnaires, simplex method. It is a complex method using the simplex equation. Decision, alternative, rational, evaluation, criteria, weighting, and all these are not extremely good. If we come to this Hirsch index, the H index, it is basically based on the literature, citation, and publication. And again, PAHO is not only based on publication. The multi-criteria decision analysis, multi-voting. Multi-voting is interesting because it is the fastest way to zero into a short list of things. Say if you have got 10,000 options for prioritization, 10,000. Then you have the first round of voting. Of course, everyone will have to look at the 10,000 options. And then you throw away the bottom half. Now you have got only 5,000, one round. The second round, it will be 2,500. And so quickly you can narrow it down to the manageable size. But no, PAHO is not interested in using that. The Delphi method, again, it is a multi-cycle anonymous expert consultation. That's not good enough. There's a two-stage method which was devised by this Bernard Choi back in 1999 for PAHO.
And L'Oreal Solar.
So you recognize those faces? Yes.
The left,
yeah.
the far right.
Yes, yes.
In the picture only.
So in 1999, I was asked to chair a 24 expert meeting to help PAHO to prioritize, I think, about 50 occupational sentinel health events. And I suggested to them we should use this two-stage method. We had 24 people divided into three groups for consistency. That's my idea. So in the first stage, I gave them, all the participants, the four criteria: the magnitude, severity, cost, and intervention. And then they use ways to prioritize and get the top 5 to 10 priority events. Three groups will have different priorities, but then we merged the three groups to look at common scores. If something has been rated top priority across all three groups, it is more consistent than something that's spreading around. But in a previous meeting, this SPAG has voted no to this method. That's okay with me. And the last one is the Hannon method, which is the one that we have chosen based on the number of criteria. This is the original Hannon equation. We have size. Remember the pumpkin? It has got a score of 0 to 10. Seriousness, the cactus, 0 to 20. Effectiveness, the scissors, 0 to 10, divided by 3 times the Pearl score. Why divided by 3? If the size is maximum, it has a score of 10. Seriousness, maximum 20. 10 plus 20 is 30. Times effectiveness, maximum of 10. 30 times 10 is 300. To make the maximum score 100, it should be divided by 3, right? our statistician has come up with the answer. Divide by 3. And then unfortunately, Hannon made a fatal mistake here. He used Pearl as a factor which has 0 or 1. Like $1 million times 0. What does that mean? 0. The priority has suddenly, it was such high a priority, and times 0, it drops to nothing. So it has been a waste of time and energy for the countries to have collected data for size, seriousness, and effectiveness. And then why should we not decide on Pearl at the first place? And if it makes it to the list, then we go through the size, seriousness, and effectiveness consideration. So this is something that's not very good. And one more thing, if you look at seriousness, 0 to 20, it has got 4 components. Urgency of the disease. If it is spreading very quickly, or it is spreading slowly, it has a different urgency, maximum of 10. Severity, 0 to 10. Economic loss, 0 to 10. Involving other people, that means infectiousness. Infecting other people, 0 to 10. There are 4 scores, each with a maximum of 10. So the maximum is 40. But then the aggregate score is 0 to 20. It doesn't make sense. It can exceed 20. So Hannon said in his original paper, total of the 4 scores rarely exceed 20. Okay, rarely. But in case it exceeds 20, truncate to 20. So that's no good. That's not what a statistician should recommend. And the other thing is, you have size plus seriousness. For effectiveness, then why do you have a multiplication? And in the whole Hannon paper, we cannot ask Hannon because he's not with us now. He said effectiveness is a multiplier, so its impact is powerful. It does not explain that. And this is a series of revisions. After the Hannon equation, the original one is A plus B times C divided by 3 times D. Vilnius introduced the cost-benefit ratio, which was good, but the problem is that they did not define what cost-benefit ratio is, how to calculate. And secondly, the symbol for that is B over C. So the B over C, if you are not careful, you do not know whether it is the B, seriousness, and C, whether it is the intervention, effectiveness. So it is not what we want. Nietzsche et al. Corrected a number of problems of the Hannon equation. For example, the seriousness, the 4 components, it is now having a maximum of 5, so that the 4 with a maximum of 5 will add up to 20. So that resolved the problem of having to truncate. And they also suggested that the Pearl score should be analyzed prior to data collection. So we gladly accepted these 2 recommendations. And we have the final Paho equation, which is A plus B plus E times C over 5.25 times F. And if you look at the final Paho equation compared with the Hannon original equation, you will find that there are 2 extra variables. What are they? E and F. E is for inequity. And of course, an inequity variable was at the suggestion of our famous professor, who is an inequity expert. And we all know that inequity is very important in priority setting. If a disease occurs more in one sex than the other, in one race than the other races, or in low income versus high income group, this is a more serious problem than the others. So we should give it scores, extra scores. So but we cannot give it too much, about 5 maximum compared to the other ones at 10 maximum is about right. Now the F is what we call the PAHO positioning score. So for the first time in history, a mechanical statistical equation has now got a political consideration component in it. Because before F, we can calculate the score from, for that, but then the positioning will mean that PAHO has the discretion of increasing or decreasing a certain score based on the real country situations. For example, if a program area has a low score, then PAHO will transfer more budget to that program area. But if that country has already the resources themselves within the country, or they have set up some kind of inter-country collaboration with the surrounding countries, then PAHO can reduce that score to a lower value so that less money is transferred. And so that's a subjective component built into a mechanical objective statistical equation. To my knowledge, no other statistical equation has done this. And you know that the PAHO positioning is a factor, and it goes from 0.67 to 1.5. Why? Because in our field tests, the original idea was to have a maximum of 2-fold, which is a reduction to half, 0.5 to 2. And that's too much because whatever you have done for the calculation, finally PAHO said 2 times increase, then that overrides everything. All the work by the statisticians are gone. So we have to reduce that to 1.5 maximum, and the reciprocal of 1.5, 1 over 1.5 is 0.67. Now the other thing that we have resolved in this is the non-diseases. How do we deal with the non-diseases? I think that's the problem that the first meeting had to work very hard overnight, 6 a.m. That's the one. We know that a disease is a bad thing. The more the disease, the worse the situation. So if the size of a disease increases, then the priority increases. For the non-disease, such as a health system or a public health intervention, it is just the reverse. The more of this, the better it is, the priority should decrease. So the way to resolve this problem is to turn all the good things into bad things. On the left, the dark area means a lot of disease. The white area means not that many. The incidence and prevalence are low. And of course, the priority will change. A disease rate, in fact, can be think of as an access to disease rate. Access rate. More people have access to the disease. Now, we can understand the access to a health program, the access to intervention is exactly the same thing. So we have to turn things around. For diseases, we look at the disease rates. For the programs, we look at the lack of access to the program. Then it is a bad thing, lack of access. Like that, we concentrate on the top area for diseases and the bottom areas for the program. So this is the result of an actual pilot test in Mexico. We have the 4 program areas of different things, of diseases and of program areas, and we look at size, seriousness, intervention, inequity, PAHO, positioning, and with all the raw data, we calculated the basic priority score, BPR, to be 27.3, 38.4, 37.7, and 38.8. And based on this, we can rank all these 4 programs on equal ground and rank them as 1, 2, 3, 4. The PAHO adapted Hannon equation has achieved a lot of things. It has made a major contribution to the science of strategic planning by extending the Hannon method for diseases only to both disease and non-disease areas. We have added consideration for inequity and institutional positioning factors. So this is more relevant and useful to the public health. The PAHO equation will be useful for other WHO areas as well, like Europe, Africa, Asia, and we are in the process of publishing, and by the way, that paper has been published a long time ago. Thank you very much.